Welcome back, everyone. Just want to take a few minutes of your time to ask, how are you doing in PokeRogue? Because let's face it, PokeRogue can be pretty unforgiving at times. You know, like when a Suicune lands 3 sheer colds in a row during a live stream and you're running a fucking Nuzlocke. Anyway, I've got some really simple and great tips, 5 to be exact, that'll elevate your game from a measly Pokeball to a masterful Rogue Ball. See, you thought I was going to say Master Ball, but I didn't, because this is PokeRogue. Quick disclaimer, these tips are in no particular order, but they are not created equal. Speaking of which, our first tip is a huge one, possibly the hugest. Stat buffs. And this is a two-parter. So first off, you want to prioritize self buffs over debuffs. So debuffs essentially only affect one opponent, but if you're buffing, you're basically getting that same effect on every opponent. Because every time that ally encounters an enemy, you're going to keep those same stat buffs. And I already know what you guys are thinking. Setting up buffs, but that's hard. I'm going to get hit, and I'm going to take damage, and then I'm going to die, and then it's not going to matter. That's why we have the first tip here, which is set buffs up on non-threats. Think of it like going to the gym. You don't want to get buff in front of bigger guys and embarrass yourself. You want to get buff in front of smaller guys who will watch and awe your massive gains, and then punch them in the face. Then, you're going to want to punch the next guy in the face too, because another thing about this game is your stat buffs actually carry between battles. Except for trainer battles, and between biome stages. But other than that, they carry between battles. So Pokemon like Gyarados, Zeraora, Blastoise, they get access to like Dragon Dance, Power Up Punch, Shell Smash. Those are going to be your big attacks you're going to be able to do. Power Up Punch, Ancient Power, things like that are even better because they satisfy your whole wanting to do damage, and they get gains. But a small caveat to this is when to actually put those buffs on. Because yes, you want to use it against non-threats, but you're going to lose it the second a trainer battle starts. So really, your best time is going to be right when the new biome kicks in around, like stage 1, 11, 151, before the 10 stages are up. And immediately after the trainer battle, that usually happens around the middle part of the stage. It doesn't work as well in the higher stages because you've got gym leader battles and Elite Four back to back. But to help you carry through the game, it's going to work perfect. And there's also an item to help with this, Baton, which we're going to talk about a little bit more later. But for the most part, all you need to know right now is it's going to let you pass your buffs around to your party in case you need to switch out to something else. Now, a side note about that, you know what, we'll get into that later. Anyway, get good at knowing how and when to stack buffs, and you'll be feeling like a maid in no time. Because you'll be sweeping. And because stacking buffs feels like a chore. And real quick, before we get into tip number 2, I want to take a moment for everyone to admire the beautiful like and sub who should be showing up right about now. He's been putting in a lot of hard work trying to get everybody to like and sub. If you're feeling super generous, you could even drop a comment. Whatever suits your fancy. And with that, we'll get on to the next tip. Entry hazards. So this one's pretty simple. It's kind of the same as stat buffs, carries between battles until a trainer fight. But it's not going to be as useful a lot of the time. You can just kind of sweep through with your stat buffs, but entry hazards still have their place. Anything from spikes or stealth rocks, getting a little bit of chip damage in, breaking sturdy on those exploding Pokemon that we have to deal with all the time. Or, drop out 2 layers of toxic spikes, so that way you're actually getting toxic to everything that has the audacity to stand before you. And I say stand because it doesn't work on flying types. Or poison types. Or steel types. So basically any of the stuff that's going to give you trouble, but it's still really good. Alright, and that's pretty much it for this one. It's pretty simple. Just use entry hazards if you have them. Not that big of a priority, but they do work great. And next up, I want to throw out a real quick secret bonus tip, because I know most of you are probably going to stop watching right about now. So this is something that seems pretty simple to those of us that know to do it, but other people may not have thought of this. Sometimes it's easier to just catch a Pokemon and release it than to fight it. So if something's really giving you trouble, your team doesn't have a good counter for it or something, just chuck a Rogue Ball at it. Maybe you'll get it. Chuck a Master Ball at it. Maybe, well, yeah, you'll definitely get it on that case. But then if you want it, you keep it. If not, you just ditch it. Don't have to fight anymore. You still get the experience for it. No problems. And speaking of that, bosses can also be caught. Some people don't know that still. It's good to know. But you do have to break all of their health gauges down to the last one. Or you can just chuck a Master Ball at them from the start, bypasses it, you can skip the whole boss fight. Alright, for tip number 3, this one's a little bit more complicated because it's going to depend on how your run's going in your team, and you're gonna have to get a good feel for it. But manipulating the shop to get better items or to just, not waste your money is a really good strategy. So sometimes it might be better to buy a healing item instead of taking the free one because there might be a nugget in the shop. So maybe you can spend 200 on a potion, get yourself healed up, and then grab a nugget for 1,000. You just made some money off that, and you still got your health. Also, another good thing is to save your money early. When you're not really caring about the ones that you're catching anyways, just use them as switch-in fodder. If they die, it's fine. You don't have to keep healing them up. You just probably leveling up 2 or 3 Pokemon anyway, so you can save your money. And instead of healing them, you can use it to reroll later. And so rerolling the shop, you at least want to do this once per shop if the first set of items isn't any good, because it's usually pretty cheap. I think in the beginning it's like 500, and then it goes up to like 1,000 and then 2,000. But every time you do it, it's going to get more expensive, so maybe only do it once or twice if you're just getting garbage. Another good thing to note on rerolling is make sure you reroll as much as possible before you hit stage 200, because you're just going to waste your money after that. So if you have a bunch of money saved up in the last 10 stages, which you probably will, I think most of us do, just spam it. Try to get some good held items, some kind of vitamins or something like that, because once you get to the boss, it's just gone. It's a waste. And while we're talking about the shop and rerolling, we might as well talk about items too that you might want to be keeping an eye out for. Again, this is going to be situational on what you want, but some generally good ones that are always going to be great to take are Master Balls, Grip Claw, Golden Punch, any vitamins, Berry Pouch, and if you've beaten the game once before, Black Hole. More than likely, if you've beaten the game before, you probably aren't watching this video, unless you just really like me. And on that note, there are a couple of items that are really good to mention. So you've got King's Rock and Multi-Lens. These are really good because King's Rock actually stacks with multi-hit moves, and so do any status effects that you could apply, or flinching, stuff like that. So Multi-Lens giving you more hits and King's Rock giving you a chance to flinch can really get insane, especially if you have something that has Skill Link or just any 2 to 5 hit move. Then you're going to have an increased chance to get those crits and those status effects off or anything like that. And since I promised earlier, we are going to talk for just a second about Baton. If you see that one, you definitely want to grab it, because being able to pass your buffs around is perfect. And you may have to switch out type disadvantages, or maybe the biome you're in kind of switched up types or something like that. And so having that baton passing around and carrying those buffs over really lets you keep your entire team steamrolling. Another thing to note, though, is that whenever you pass the baton over, after the battle or the stage or whatever else, that baton will stay on that Pokemon. So you'll need to make sure you transfer in between stages to give it back to the Pokemon that actually stacks up buffs. He's basically just sharing his gains with everybody else, but it's not going to do him any good if he doesn't have a camera to, record himself and put it on TikTok and stuff. And then another good note, in case you just don't know, is while you're in the shop, you can transfer items between Pokemon. It's on the bottom right. It's kind of hard to miss, but I missed it for like my first 15 runs. So there it is. And now we're moving on to our final tip. But don't run away yet. Don't just skip out after this is over. I am going to have a nice little compilation of egg hatches after this while you listen to me ramble on about liking and subbing and all that stuff. So that way you can get those nice endorphins popping, them gotcha endorphins. But before that, here's our final tip. And this is a really easy one. It's going to be controversial, but enable retries. I know, it's a roguelike, that's cheating, blah, 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 blah. Look, at the end of the day, it's a single player game. It's about having fun. If you're having fun, I don't care. No one else should care. So if you're having trouble, just turn on the retries until you get used to it. This will let you restart the battle from the same state as before whenever you lose. Or hey, you can just hit the refresh button on the browser if you forgot to turn on retries. At any point, it just works really great. It's not going to be a, get good all of a sudden or anything, but it's going to let you retry the battle. You can kind of see what the opponent has. You can plan a strategy, start getting a little bit better, and then maybe when you're feeling really brave and your team's all got them gains from all them buffs, you can just turn the retries off and you can feel really great about beating the game without it. Or you can just keep using it because it doesn't matter and no one's going to know. So here we are at the end. You've heard my 5+1 bonus tip and the one that I rambled on for a while about, which I think was probably the items. I don't know. I like to talk a lot sometimes. So, as promised, here's your Pokemon orphanage vending machine footage. I mean, eggs hatching. Same thing, really, when you think about it. But anyways, while you're watching this, make sure you praise the like and sub by liking and subscribing. And if you're enjoying the content, especially if you want to stay up to date on videos, then make sure you hit that little bell icon so that we can get a notification whenever I post something. Speaking of posting something, I have a really great challenge series that I'm working on. It's going to be coming up soon, probably sometime next week. I'm hoping to get it out by next Saturday. If you're watching this in the future and that day's past, it's probably already out, and there's probably a link to it somewhere on the side of the screen coming up soon. But anyways, we're calling it Battle of the Gens, and we're going to be pitting all the generations against each other. And so we'll be starting off with the Gen 1ers, the original boomers, but not the baby boomers, because these guys didn't know how to make babies back then. Which was kind of weird because no one seemed to know where they came from, including the professor who spent his entire life studying them. But you know, even professors don't know everything, and usually they're just kind of lying. So anyways, wrap things up. Just know that you're all appreciated. Your support and all the advice I've been getting really means a lot. It's been helping me out a lot. And I'll catch you next time with the Rogue Ball, because you'll be subscribed.